All right, welcome back, everybody. As you can see, we're in a very professional setting today. I am at the public library. I have beautiful drawings in the back for you. Don't worry about that, we'll get into it. But today, I just wanted to have a little chat about emotional alchemy and what that means. Of course, let's keep in mind that all of this is based off my own experiences and my own understandings of what we're fucking dealing with here on Earth. If you don't agree with me, then thank you for hearing me out. I appreciate everybody being here. And I don't know, maybe give me your take on it and it might change my mind. Who knows? I'm forever expanding and growing. So before we get into that, how is everybody doing? Let's get like a vibe check real quick. How's everybody doing? Because I woke up today feeling surprisingly calm and grounded, which is so awesome. I'm so grateful whenever that happens, because there are some days where I wake up just like, you know what I mean? So I hope you're doing well. Anyways, let's get into it. So I have a little notepad with me today because if you guys know me, my mind tends to wander and I'll end up going on tangents, so I got to keep something to keep me on track. So, emotional alchemy. What is emotional alchemy? Emotional alchemy is when you take an emotion and transmute it into something. So think back to what alchemy means, right? Alchemy can be closely related to what modern day chemistry is. You are taking one compound and then you are reconstructing it in order to become something else. So we're doing that in relation to our own emotions. One thing that I would like to start off by saying is your mind is incredibly powerful. And if you don't think that, you need to reassess your situation and look at what's going on around you, because we are creating our own reality based off our own perception, okay? Your inner world reflects your outer world. And by changing your perspective, that will ultimately change your life. And the reason for this is because when we change our perspective on something, we start operating as a new person, right? Because say I believed in something, then my perspective changed, you know, I had an experience that told me otherwise, discredited my prior beliefs. And with that new knowledge, I am able to form different beliefs that more closely align to what my own individual experience is. And because of that reason, I am now, I am now operating as a new person in a sense. Even if I'm not totally new or different, there is at least a fraction of me that is operating as a new individual. And what happens after that is, based off your perspectives, you are able to make different decisions, which then change your entire life's trajectory. Now, another thing that I found incredibly important to mention, and both of these I have listed up here. I feel like you can't really see it too well. I'm gonna move the camera eventually so you can see all of my beautiful artwork. Emotion is energy in motion. Think about splitting the word. Motion. Energy, motion. Energy in motion, right? Keep this in the back of your mind, because that will make a lot more sense. And also, your mind being incredibly powerful will make a lot more sense while I'm starting to explain all of this. So, in terms of emotion, and it being energy in emotion, or energy in motion rather, you have to feel those emotions in order to release or transmute them. So I see this very often, and I have been very guilty of it as well in the past. Like I said, all of this is based off my own experiences, so I have directly dealt with this. I went through a lot of my life where I was closed off from my emotions because they felt like way too much for me to deal with at the time. So I closed myself off from them and suppressed them. And what happens when we do this is, when you suppress your emotions, you start to train your brain to become numb, right? Because we have something called neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is your brain is able to reshape itself all the time. That's just a known psychological feature. You can fact check me if you want to, that your brain has the ability to reshape itself. And I'm not talking about just physically. I'm talking about, like, for instance, with what I was just talking about, if you get in the habit of suppressing your emotions, you start to become numb, because then your brain realizes, like, oh, we're not doing this. We're not feeling emotion. So let's go ahead and put that on the back burner, because we have other important things that we have to deal with instead of these emotions. And after time, it literally creates pathways in your brain to just not feel emotion anymore. Scary. I'm sure some of you are like either relating to this, or you're like, well, good, I don't want to feel those emotions. Which, hear me out, we're going to get into why this isn't a good thing. But when you suppress your emotions and your brain becomes numb, since emotions are energy in motion throughout your body, that energy becomes stuck. It gets stockpiled, if you will, for lack of a better term. It becomes stockpiled in your body and your system, your energetic system. And this is what leads to a lot of ailments. And I'm talking all kinds of ailments. I'm talking about mental ailments, physical ailments, emotional ailments, you fucking name it. Obviously, nobody wants that, right? Think of something, because we all have them. I'm not perfect. I have them too. Like, I have certain issues that I have to deal with. And like I said, because I suppressed my emotions for literal years, it wasn't until like last year that I really started allowing this emotion to come up. So I'm still in the purging process, and we'll get into that later, but I'm still in the purging process. So I very much still have some of these ailments that we're talking about. So think of something that you have, and think about how it feels to feel your emotions. I know it's scary. I know it can be a lot, but is it really worth it? Like, if it's causing these issues in your life that then lead to so many other issues, because it cascades, right? It cascades. If you have one issue, that creates like little subsets of issues. Is not feeling that emotion really worth going through all of that? I personally don't think so, but that's just me. Another thing that I feel incredibly called to talk about, I'm trying my hardest not to smack the table. I'm sorry, guys, I'm very passionate. And I'm also trying to get better at not apologizing, because my boyfriend brought that to my awareness that I do that pretty often on camera. Maybe you guys haven't seen it yet because I edit stuff out. But that's, again, something I need to work on because of past trauma. But never mind that. Something I feel incredibly called to talk about because of my own life experience is addiction. Now, from my understanding, as somebody who grew up with a family full of addicts, and if you're my family and you're watching this, I love you so much. I really do. I'm not trying to like put you guys on blast. You guys are great people, but we have our issues. We need to admit it. As somebody who comes from a family full of addicts and was an addict myself for a very long time, my understanding of addiction is that it is, in a sense, just suppressing your emotions. It's literally a coping mechanism in order to suppress your emotions. Now let's really break this down, because I feel like this is a good analogy that a lot of people can understand. We all know the whole like smoking and drinking to numb the pain trope, right? It's in so many fucking songs. It's talked about pretty frequently in our society. That right there is a perfect example of how addiction can be used as a Band-Aid in order to prevent you from feeling your emotions. But like I said, as somebody who went through this, I lived it. When you do that, yeah, you may feel better for a little bit. You may feel fucking great for a little bit, but all you're doing is you are borrowing future happiness and calmness, contentness, whatever that thing is bringing you, whatever that drug, it doesn't even have to be a drug. You can literally get addicted to anything. Whatever that is bringing you in that moment, you are then borrowing from the future. Think about when you drink. That's a very, very easy one for a lot of people to relate to. What happens the next day? You feel like shit. You're hungover. You don't want to do much. Or maybe you're super functional. I don't know your life. But you don't feel at full capacity. And, you know, people can say, oh, I don't drink. I smoke weed. It doesn't do that. I'm not hungover. Weed doesn't make you hungover. Which, as somebody who used to be a manager at a dispensary and who has smoked weed since I was like 12, weed can give you a hangover, first off. But second off, you're missing the point if you're thinking that, because when you smoke, you're still, whether it's to dull something, like to dull your emotions, to cope, to enhance something in that moment, you're still borrowing something from the future, right? So you're borrowing that enhancement. It's gonna catch up with you later, because you're gonna be sitting there looking at life like, oh man, this is so boring. You know how much better it was when I was high? Maybe I should smoke. I hope this is making sense to some of you guys. And I really don't want you guys to think that I'm like against weed or against like all drugs, because I don't think that they're inherently bad. Nothing in this world is inherently bad. It's all about intention. Your intention, because your mind is so powerful. Intention is everything, and I cannot stress that enough. Okay, so addiction, right? So when I started realizing this, how I got to the root cause, because truly that's the only way that you're going to be able to come out of that addiction fully. I mean, you could stop, but oftentimes you'll end up relapsing. But anyways, besides the point, you have to find the root cause. How I personally did that was through breaking it down. Like breaking it down, right? Okay. What am I trying to avoid feeling? Even if you don't feel like you're trying to avoid feeling something, really think about that. Because I've had instances where I'm like, I'm not trying to avoid feeling something. And then I've smoked myself into oblivion for like a week straight. And as soon as I stop smoking, it's like everything comes back. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was putting all of this off because I'm stressed. I was trying to avoid the stress and responsibilities of my life. What am I avoiding feeling? That will help you figure out the root cause of what you are looking for in order to get rid of that addiction. And I really hope that helps somebody, because by doing that, that has helped me tremendously. And if you guys want to know more about my struggles with addiction, feel free to let me know in the comments. I could do a whole video. I could probably do multiple videos on that. I spent a lot of time numbing myself, and I'm very, very grateful that I'm out of that. And I feel like that experience has given me so much perspective. And that's not, I mean, I've had so many experiences that have changed my perspectives. I've been a new person so many fucking times, guys. So many fucking times. But that experience was one of the ones where I was like, okay, I should be sharing this with other people. Because I know it's a very like shameful thing to talk about, or some people straight up won't address it. And I didn't even like do anything really hard. Like I wasn't doing like crack or anything like that, but like I said, it's your intention. And my intention was that of an addict, no matter what I was doing. So before I get too off track, let's go ahead and move on. As I mentioned before, emotional purging. Emotional purging is what happens to you after you have cut your emotions off and suppressed them for a really long time. And like I said, it starts to stockpile within you. That energy has to leave at some point. It's not gonna, like I said, it's gonna start creating problems. Like, you have to get rid of it. So what emotional purging is once you start letting yourself feel your emotions again, which may be very challenging in the beginning. I had to like actively, there were times where I was like, I felt like I had to cry, or like I was gonna cry, but my body was so used to not letting me cry because I would always hold it in, where I would be like, I want to cry, like, come on, like just do it, like just let it out. I had to like pep talk myself into like letting myself fucking cry, which is, it sounds so silly, but like it truly is, it can be really hard to, after you've been doing that for so long, to do it again and just allow yourself to do it. But just like with anything, the more you do it, the easier it gets. So in relation to emotional purging, because you have all of this emotional energy, this like muck inside of you that you've never like took the time to clear out, you may find yourself just like crying randomly, or just like randomly irritated for seemingly no reason at all, like no trigger. And this is due to that stockpiling effect, because it needs to come out and be expressed in some way. And we're going to talk about how to do that, because obviously you can't just, like, if you feel like you need to cry and you are in a situation where you can't just like break down, like you're with a bunch of people, and like that alone can be very challenging. If you don't even give yourself space to do it in front of yourself, doing it in front of other people, that can be really fucking challenging. So the biggest thing I can say about expressing your emotions in a proper way and letting that energy come out, we have a couple of options, right? But the two paramount things that you should keep in mind while doing this is staying aware and conscious of how you are expressing those emotions. So awareness and consciousness about how you are expressing these emotions, because your intention is everything. The goal, the like absolute best case scenario, and don't be too hard on yourself if you're not perfect at this the first time. Like, that's another, I could go off about that too. I need to make a video on that. We think that we need to be perfect at something the first fucking time we do it, but that's so unrealistic. Anyways, the goal is doing it in a conscious and healthy way. You need to separate yourself from people if you need to. If you are in a situation where something comes up, maybe you do actually have a trigger, I don't know, and you feel frustrated or agitated, and you're with these people and you're like, I'm gonna freak out, I'm gonna go off on somebody. Separate yourself. Or if you feel like you need to cry, separate yourself. I cannot tell you how many times I take my little ass into the bathroom, cry my eyes out for a second, wipe it all up, and go back out. I do that pretty often. I'm still doing that. Like I said, I'm still purging my own shit. But the reason why, if you're in a situation like that, why you should separate yourself is by lashing out on that person. That is gonna later make you feel guilt and shame. Nobody truly likes lashing out on somebody. Yeah, maybe in the moment you're like, haha, like, they deserved it, fucking assholes, right? But like later down the line, if you're like looking at your own behavior and you truly want to better yourself, you're gonna be like, why did I do that? I could have handled that so much better. I could have been an adult about it. And if I was, maybe we could have had a conversation and came to some type of agreement, or maybe not, and that's fine. But the thing is, you want to avoid creating more emotional muck inside yourself. So if you do something like lash out on a person because you feel agitated in that moment, later down the line, you're gonna get that guilt and shame, which you're gonna have to then express again, which is fine. If you're okay with doing it, then whatever. But it just saves you steps, right? Or like my analogy with crying. If you are in a room full of people that you don't feel safe enough to cry in front of, or you feel like you can't cry, maybe you're at work, and you work in customer service or something. If you don't separate yourself and let those emotions come up, what do you think you're more likely to do in that situation? Well, I can tell you because I've done it. You are more likely to suppress it because it's easy, because you can justify it and say, oh, I need to right now. I can't cry in front of these people. I can't have a moment. But what that does is, like I said, it just drives that same neural pathway in your brain that keeps you stuck and keeps you numb. So just be conscious of that. Every action that you take has some sort of reaction. So the more awareness that you can have in a situation, especially right before you're about to make some sort of action, that can vastly affect the reaction that it's going to cause. And that is that on hacking your fucking life. I would drop the mic if it wasn't attached to me. All right. So that was one instance, right? So expressing our emotions, letting it out, that can be very healthy. Another thing that you can do, and again, you can't do this in all situations, but another thing that you can do in order to transmute that emotion is creating something. And I say creating something very loosely because you don't necessarily have to create something in the traditional sense, like make something. It could be that you are like creating a clean room. You are, because you got inspired by that emotion to clean your room. You got inspired by that emotion to do the dishes. You know, you see what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be necessarily creating something. Like, if you really think about it, like I said, it's creating a like clean space for yourself, or so it is creating, but all I'm saying is it doesn't have to be so rigid. Like, you don't have to think like, oh, I can't like paint or write music or anything, so like that's what artists do, so I can't do this. You sure as hell can. You can clean your room. You can do the dishes. You can, I can't think of anything else right now for whatever reason, but there are so many things that you can do instead of just like the basic things that everybody talks about. But I will say, if you do have a hobby, which I strongly suggest that you have a hobby, that is one thing that has kept me absolutely sane in this world. In fact, at this point, I have so many hobbies that I have to like really manage my time. But if you have a hobby, put that energy into that hobby. It doesn't have to be great energy all the time. Like, it doesn't matter. You can transmute it, and we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about how to do that more in depth. And like, I created a whole emotion wheel right here, and I have an analogy for you on like how it's used. Like, there are ways to do that. So keep that in your mind. You can transmute through actually expressing. So expression, you are using that emotion and letting it come out. Boom. Or you can use that emotion and transmute it and let it come out into something. That's what I did with this fucking video, guys. I was so frustrated when I wrote this whole draft out for this video, and it came out so good. Like, I came up with a diagram. Like, I'm proud of myself, okay? I don't care what anybody says, but that is the point of this. Take that shit and do something you love with it. Don't let it fester. Don't let it pile up. You're hurting yourself by doing that. You're hurting other people by doing that. It's a chain reaction. Everything is a chain reaction. Plus, if I didn't do this, then whoever hears this, you know, for all I know, somebody out there can hear this and it can give them a whole new perspective that changes their whole life's trajectory for the better. If I didn't do this, then maybe they would have ended up on a worse path. Like I said, everything has a chain reaction. It is not just about you. We are all one, guys. I don't want to get like super woo-woo about this, but I would be doing myself a disservice not to fully like state my own experience and my own opinions, because we truly all are one, like at least in my experience. And that's fucking proof how. It's all a chain reaction. I want to talk about not fearing your emotions. Because like I said, my whole thing was, I'm a sensitive person, right? And maybe I don't show that in your typical like, oh, I'm like crying, and I don't know, your like textbook definition of like a sensitive person. And a lot of that could be because I spent so long suppressing that side of me. But at the end of the day, I am a sensitive ass individual. And I used to be scared of expressing my emotions because they were so big. They felt like so much. I've been told in my childhood that they were too much, even if it wasn't outright saying it, it was implied. So that made me think like, oh, it's too much, I have to suppress it, right? I became scared of it. I became scared that showing them would make me look weak, whatever. But at the end of the day, what I realized is your emotions are so fucking powerful when it comes to manifesting, dude. Like, so powerful when it comes to manifesting. Think about the beginning of this video, what I was talking about. What was I talking about? Hold on. I want to get the exact. Your inner world reflects your outer world. By changing your perspective, that changes your life. You are then operating as a new person because of that new perspective. And that creates different choices in your life, which then creates a different life trajectory. Manifestation. If you don't want to be woo-woo about it, that is like left brain manifestation if I haven't fucking heard it. And I subscribe to both sides of brain, honey. I can do both. And that's why I feel like I'm a good messenger for this. But before I toot my own horn a little too much, your emotions are so fucking powerful when it comes to manifestation. So powerful. If you're sensitive, if you have big emotions, if you relate to me on that, all you are is a powerful manifester. Now, what you decide to do from there is your choice. What you decide to manifest from there is your choice. And that's why I want to give you the tools in order to do it in the way that you want to do it. Because for a long time, I was manifesting shit that didn't serve me, shit that hurt me, shit that put me more in my shell, until I realized this. And that's when everything changed. Now, your emotions, not only are they tools for manifestation, but they are also incredible messengers. They give you signals that your brain in that moment might not be picking up on. There have been so many times where I've heard something, and it doesn't have to be anything like sad necessarily, but I've heard something and it makes me want to cry. If you're ever in that situation, and it doesn't have to be crying, it could be any emotion, this can be applied to everything. If you're in that situation, really look at yourself and say, why am I feeling this all of a sudden? What I just saw or what I just heard, what I just did wasn't sad. Why do I feel like I want to cry? Really dive into that, because that is your emotion in that moment is letting you know something. It's trying to tell you something about yourself. And if you just brush it off, well, my friend, you are not gaining a new perspective from it. And why is perspective so important? Because it changes your whole life's trajectory. I'll keep saying it. I'll shout it from the fucking rooftops. I'll walk out of this library room and yell it at everybody in the library. No, I won't do that. I'm not about to disturb everybody's peace. I'll probably get kicked out and they'll tell me I can never come back, and then, I don't know, I'm gonna have to like find somewhere else with a whiteboard to do these videos. But anyways, I hope you got something from this. I really do. This shit has literally changed my life in such a profound way. Such a profound way. I am now able to consciously co-create my life by practicing this. And that, if that's not powerful, then what is? That is so powerful. That's what everybody wants. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I'm still learning. But it's a hell of a lot better than where I was. But if you're in a state of mind where you just feel helpless and you feel depressed and you feel numb, I was there too, my friend. You don't need to feel helpless. I'm not going to tell you to go out there and get help, get therapy. Yeah, that shit can be beneficial. But the most, in my opinion, the most beneficial thing you can do for yourself is work on your fucking perspective. Become aware, become conscious, work on your perspective. That will change everything for you. I love you so much. Please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I'll see you guys another time.